Yeah, so hi guys, thank you for tuning in today. My name is Mike, like Lee says, and yeah, basically Cape Head is a marine conservation education centre based in the UK, but our main hub where we bring the students and do the training and education trips is here in Cape Town. So we're tuning in live from Cape Town today. Beautiful sunny day, hope it is where you are. And the purpose behind Cape Head is to offer accessibility and engaging content to school learners of sort of grade, ages 14 through to 17. And it's basically just to give you an experience of hands-on nature, being sort of covered by nature and involved with some really cool citizen science experiences. And also just to talk and start the conversation about how to get into the career of being a marine biologist, conservation, and and give people opportunities to ask me questions about anything they might have on their mind. So that's what today's about.
So, first question to put to Mike, our marine biologist, is what does a marine biologist do here in South Africa?
So, at the centre here in South Africa, our ecosystem is mostly the kelp forest, and we're really lucky. We're literally on the doorstep of False Bay, which is a marine biodiversity hotspot and an incredible ecosystem of the Great African Sea Forest, or kelp forest, and it's a super biodiverse environment. And a lot of the work we do is looking at measuring biodiversity and doing population counts and impact effects on the species within the kelp forests. So, for example, we might go out and count kelp and look at distribution and density of kelp. We might look at the specific species within the kelp. So, perhaps we look at something like nudibranchs or octopus or shy sharks. And one of our projects is looking at some shy shark population estimates of the local area, a very endemic species.
Cool. Okay, so burning question I think most people always want to know is how do you get into marine biology?
Yeah, so I think when we think about marine biology, we think quite specifically about, it's quite a narrow field, but it's actually a super broad field. So basically, you obviously have to qualify for sixth form or college, whatever your route is. And then at A level, you would do your sciences, perhaps biology, physics, chemistry, perhaps geography. Maths is always a good one, but not completely necessary. So if you're not a super keen mathematician, it is not the end of the world, so don't panic. And then after sixth form, you would go to university and you would study, well, these days you can directly study marine biology, but there's a whole host of different things: zoology, ecology, conservation, oceanography, marine science, marine statistics. There's a whole loads of different projects and specific module courses that you can actually do, and they kind of all broadly fall under marine biology. So just to clarify, marine biology is the study of animals in the ocean, and through all of those avenues you will at some point come across the ocean and its inhabitants. And then as you kind of move through university, you might then specialise at sort of honours or master's level, where you would choose a project, perhaps sort of a dissertation level project, where you would pick a particular area of interest, and then you would go on to PhD and postdoctorate work if you wanted to go through the academia route.
What would you have to study really to go into marine biology? Do you have to do the obvious one of biology, or are there other routes into it?
Yeah, biology, environmental science, but also chemistry, physics also plays a little bit role in maths. So yeah, need to be reasonably relevant to sort of biological sciences. So marine biology falls under the Department of Biological Sciences when you go to university. So that's kind of the department that you're looking for when you're looking through websites or campus magazines. And under biological sciences, you will find all those that I just listed, marine biology and things like that. But like I say, I think something that's really important in this discussion is to explain that marine biology is a super broad spectrum. So if you want to be a scientist and you go to university, then you'll become a marine biologist or a marine scientist. But conservation is a little bit more broader in the sense that not everyone needs to be a scientist and sort of university level trained or higher. And there's loads of different ways and routes and avenues to get into contributing and working in marine conservation.
So you can be a marine conservationist if you're really interested in the ocean but you don't want to go down a marine biology route.
Yeah, perhaps you've got different skills, so perhaps you're into photography or videography or writing as a journalist or all these different things which you can find a way to contribute towards marine conservation.
What sort of areas do marine biologists specialise in?
Well, so for example, myself, I specialise in sharks, so I'm a shark scientist. But I mean, you know, so you can specialise species specific. You can specialise, I mean, you can specialise as much as you want. You can specialise on, you know, counting cones or rods in the eyes of specific species of fish or shark. Or you can keep it super broad and look at ecological studies, which is sort of measuring biodiversity, looking at the ecology of the whole ecosystem. So, yeah, so I'm a white shark scientist, and then I've kind of broadened that out to general sharks. And now we're doing more kind of kelp forest biodiversity. There's biochemistry side, there's physics, there's physiology, there's DNA and genetics. There's loads of different routes and topics which you can specialise in. But you don't really, sometimes people when they're young they have a sudden a passion that they're sort of really into, a specific passion which is great, and then as you go through you'll be able to sort of drive yourself towards where you need to be. But for those people who don't really know what they're interested in, but they know they're interested in marine biology or conservation, don't panic, don't worry. You pick that up as you go further through your education and university life. You'll kind of be exposed to different things, you'll be exposed to different people. Perhaps when you go to university, your professor or lecturers have a particular interest in a certain area, and then you're like, oh, that's kind of cool, I want to get involved in that. Or you'll meet people and network with people and you find what you're interested in, and then you can specialise more like later on. But in terms of A-levels and university, you really don't need to worry about specialisation.
So how about maybe telling everybody what's your journey? How did you end up here in South Africa after studying white sharks? What did you do at A-levels? What university did you go to?
So I'm from Manchester originally, UK, and I went to college and I studied environmental science, biology and law, which was a weird one. And then after that I went to Bangor University, and what you'll find is when you're looking at universities, there are certain universities which specialise in certain areas, and Bangor University is very well known for its marine sciences and biological sciences. So, you know, in terms of marine biology universities, Exeter, Portsmouth, Plymouth, Southampton, Bournemouth, Bangor, and there's a couple in Scotland as well. So some really good universities which specialise in that. I went to Bangor, I studied zoology and conservation. So again, not specifically marine biology, very broad spectrum of topic. And then I ended up coming to South Africa on a volunteer programme where I got involved with some hands-on experience stuff. And it ended up turning into a job for me. We seemed to just get on and be quite good at it. And then that's where I started tagging sharks and driving the research boats, and eventually taking students out, training them in the field, and then eventually working on my postgraduate work, which was in shark deterrence, so looking at white shark deterrence, looking at how visual deterrence from killer whale patterns might deter white sharks from hunting a surface object like a seal or a surfboard.
That's interesting. So we're going to come on to killer whales, orcas, and the interaction they have with the white sharks shortly. I don't know if I missed this earlier on, but could you tell us what place in the world that you have worked?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky. Marine biology is a topic where you will get chance and exposure to travel the world if you want to. But before I get into that, just also as a caveat, marine biology doesn't necessarily mean you're in the ocean with sharks and dolphins every day. You might be in a lab, you might be research based at a desk, the chances are you're going to be a little bit of everything and mixed in a little bit of field work with a little bit of desk work with a little bit of grant writing, permit writing, so it's not just about swimming with sharks. However, I was super lucky because I went to Australia and I got an amazing opportunity to work on the Great Barrier Reef, and I spent a year on the Great Barrier Reef taking students out and collecting data on coral bleaching and certain fish diversity species and things like that. And then I went over to Ningaloo Reef and I was working on whale shark tagging and tracking, and we were doing some photo identification on whale sharks as well. And then I got invited back from that place in South Africa where I was volunteering back to work, and that's kind of where my white shark science kind of took off.
Brilliant. Okay, so what we had said is we wanted to have a look at, the hot topic of today is, we've kind of titled it as, are the orcas, are they maybe now the top predator in South Africa? And I think it's quite important to explain to people that many people don't think of killer whales as being the top predator, do they? I think a lot of people, when you say what's the top predator in the ocean, they go straight to the great white shark. And there's a very interesting phenomenon been happening just outside where we are now in False Bay, with two orcas. So could you maybe explain to everybody what is potentially going on? When did it start? What are the killer whales, the orcas, doing?
Yeah, so False Bay historically is famous for its white sharks, and a lot of my research was done here, and it's an aggregation site, what we call an aggregation site. So lots of white sharks seasonally come into this bay. We've got a seal island in the middle of the bay with 60,000 Cape fur seals on it, which is the attractant for the white sharks. Mm-hmm. In the winter time, they come in and hunt them. And so for as long as anyone can remember, we'd go in the winter time, we'd see white sharks in False Bay. And that's where the kind of cage diving operations came from and that kind of thing. And then in 2015, suddenly the shark disappeared, which was in the middle of sort of the time when they were meant to be there, the busiest time as well. So it was quite bizarre. And then a couple of weeks later, we noticed these sharks washing up on the shore, white sharks, great white sharks, perfectly intact except for a liver, which had been systematically removed, and it turns out we realised that it had marks from killer whale teeth. Anyway, a few months went by, we didn't see any sharks anywhere in any of the aggregations around South Africa. And as time went by, we eventually started to see these two killer whales keep repeatedly come into the bay and then disappear. And they're called port and starboard. And they're given that name because they've both got floppy fins. One goes to the left, so port side, it's a nautical term, and one goes to the right, starboard, which is very unusual in the wild population. Less than 4% actually have floppy fins, like Free Willy. In captivity, it's normal or kind of quite common.
You might need to explain. Free Willy is quite an old film from when we were quite younger.
If you've not seen Free Willy, go and see Free Willy.
It was about a captive killer whale, a captive orca, that they managed to free. So I don't think we've spoiled the story there by saying what it was. But yeah, in captivity, their dorsal fins collapse quite regularly, don't they?
It's due to sort of stress, dehydration, illness, various different things. In the wild population, obviously, they're not exposed to that sort of stuff, but for whatever reason, these two killer whales both have floppy fins, and they are related, so perhaps it's just a genetic thing. So yeah, and then we were just put two and two together, and we had these killer whales coming in, sharks disappearing, sharks washing up dead on the shore. And then I think it was 2019, we actually saw firsthand a hunt from these guys to confirm that it was those guys. And yeah, basically since then, Gansbaai, which is another aggregation further down the coast, and Mossel Bay have seen the odd shark, but not very often. And we've not seen anything in False Bay really consistently since 2015. So it's a bizarre phenomenon. So back to your question of the king of the sea. Yeah, a lot of people think it's the white shark because of their ferocious reputation, but these killer whales are something else, and they've really started to impact on the white shark behaviour and population potentially here.
And we were talking this week about the 2 killer whales in the bay, and you even said that there's potentially, they are, because they're so intelligent, aren't they? They're perhaps teaching other populations in different parts of the world. Or are they, do you think, are they able to teach techniques about how to attack and hunt the great whites? Because it's obviously a very specialised thing to do, isn't it?
So the thing with killer whales is they have types, and there's 3 or 4 different types. They're still actually deciding how many types there are. But basically, certain killer whales do certain things. Some will hunt herring fish in the pack ice. Some will hunt outside the pack ice. Some will hunt seals and marine mammals only. Some will hunt whales and just eat the tongue and the jaw. And apparently others eat sharks and rays. Now, because these 2 killer whales were operating as a pair, we always used to think it was, and it's quite rare to see this. It's been documented in New Zealand maybe once or twice previously, but apart from that, to see a white shark being attacked or eaten by a killer whale was very rare. And so we used to think, okay, these guys have learnt together, they're double teaming the white sharks, because the white sharks are not an easy thing to take down. And so we assumed that it was a specialisation of just these 2 related killer whales. And then 2023, last year, middle of last year, an event happened in Mossel Bay where a different killer whale, we could tell it was a different killer whale because it was on its own and it had a full sticking up dorsal. And we didn't, but someone over there got drone footage of this shark being attacked and killed by a single individual killer whale. And scientists were able to take stable isotopes and find out that it's of the population area of South America. So now we know that there's a movement between South America. There's a lot of killer whales that operate off the coast of Argentina and South Africa. So they're moving between, so these killer whales are globally distributed and moving large distances. So perhaps these killer whales have been taught by port and starboard and communicated somehow the technique, or where at least, to do it, and how they're coming over and having to go themselves.
So you said earlier that you were working on white shark deterrence and perhaps using orca patterns, etc. You've said that in the bay out here now, there's been virtually any sharks at all for years. And I'm right in thinking, aren't I, that when the orcas are spotted, even in some of the places where the white sharks a little bit further along the coast were, they seem to disappear for weeks at a time. And do we know what maybe alerts all the sharks in the area to go? Because is there a theory, something about, when a shark is attacked, it gives off a scent that the others can pick up on? Or, can they hear the orcas when they come into the bay and that's what makes them leave? Do we know why the sharks disappear when the orcas arrive?
So, no, we don't know why. It could be for a number of reasons. It could be visual, but I mean, when we see this happen, it's like all the sharks disappear. So every shark can't see it. And the communication between individual sharks as an aggregation, we're not sure if there is a huge amount of that. In terms of hearing, white sharks hear very low and slow bandwidth. And killer whales generally use rather high pitched frequency, but also if they were hunting, they wouldn't be making a noise because it'd be in stealth mode. So it's probably not sound. So it leaves us with potentially some kind of chemical release from any sharks that are hunted, which is picked up by their sensory smell. And yeah, perhaps they just sort of realise and bolt. But interesting, what we have seen is other shark species, like the cow sharks, they have actually moved from where they used to be, because also in 2015, 9 cow sharks were killed as well and washed up. Same thing, liver only. Now we're seeing that the cow sharks are hiding in the harbour right here across the road, and there's 7, 8, 9 individual sharks there. We actually saw port and starboard last week while we were out at sea, and all the sharks seem to have come into the harbour to hide from killer whales.
Wow.
So it's very interesting.
So even on like some snorkeling trips, you can see sharks. I know I was fortunate enough to go out the day before yesterday, and I saw a huge gully shark. And that's, like you say, it's literally just around the coast in the bay where we are now. Okay, so orca maybe is the top predator. Maybe just as part of your marine biology research when you were starting out, you said you did white shark deterrents. Could you maybe explain to everybody what the white shark deterrent idea is? Because I think most people know shark nets are a really bad idea. So any kind of other deterrent that is better.
Yeah, so we're looking. So in terms of human-wildlife relationships and mitigation, at the moment, nets and drumlines seems to be the way of basically killing the sharks, not scaring them off, killing them. So what we wanted to look at, along with lots of different people around the world, are looking at non-lethal forms of a shark deterrent. So a shark deterrent is something that will scare the sharks away or keep them out of a specific area or away from a specific object. So I was specifically looking at visual deterrents, so looking at contrasting patterns of black and white and how they might see that. Now we know that white sharks are monochromatic, which means they can only see various shades of black and white. And basically, vision is based on reflectiveness of the object rather than the colour. So I tested out various things: black decoys, black and white striped decoys, and black and white killer whale pattern. Now, it was a very difficult subject to do because I had to move between 3 sites to try and get enough data, and it took a long time, and it was split a few different ways, so I didn't get enough data to give any significant results. But what I did see was a biological trend of the black decoys every single time were hit and bit by the sharks. The black and white striped decoy was hit a few times, but very rarely bit, maybe bit like 3 or 4 times. And we're talking out of 50, 60 hits. And then the killer whale pattern, the trident pattern of the killer whale, the ventral pattern, the belly pattern, we towed that, and that got, in 3 years and about 50, maybe 70 tows, we only got 2 hits and no bites.
When you say a toe, do you want to explain what does a decoy look like? What's a toe?
So we cut some foam out in the shape of seals, and we basically towed them behind the boat around Seal Islands for a couple of hours around sunrise and sunset. Now, white sharks do this hunting behaviour where it's called the Polaris breach, where they'll find a nice deep channel of water and they'll visually connect with a seal, for example, or whatever their prey species is. And then they'll come from very deep, very fast, vertically, and swim and try and sort of capture that seal on the surface as it comes up. And it's basically an ambush technique. So it's a very split-second sort of thing, a bit like when a cheetah sprints out from behind a bush, and it lasts very quickly. And so we thought maybe we can use visual deterrents to change the behaviour of that shark at the last second. So we had cameras underneath, and we had cameras above, and then the decoys out, and then we could see if the shark was aborted, which means it came into camera and then turned away before it went anywhere near the decoys. A hit would come up and it would bump the decoy, but it would then swim away and not bite it. Important definition. Mm-hmm. And then a bite would obviously be a bite. So.
Well, okay, so sticking with the idea of marine biologists, I know a couple of people quite often will ask, what does a marine biologist do? You've explained your story a little bit, but where you are right now, here in South Africa, you've been fortunate enough to be able to set up some companies, haven't you, where you can teach your passion to other people. So you're currently involved in 3 companies, aren't you? And at the moment, obviously, we're looking at Cape Ed. And what Cape Ed is designed to do is try and share your passion, marine biologist passion, with a younger audience. An audience, obviously for us right now, is based in the UK. So what we're going to do now is we're going to show you just a really, really short clip. It's about 60 seconds. And we've just packed everything into what we do when we bring some of our UK schools down, which obviously is something that you guys might be able to get involved in if your teachers are interested and things like that. And also a lot of the areas that we've just been talking about, it gives you a little bit of context. So you'll see Seal Island, you'll see the students watching we had a big bait wall, wasn't it, I think on one of our last trips, and there's loads of dolphins all coming in, and there's gannets going up from the top, etc. So yeah, the whole idea of showing you that is so that you can see the area. We'll send the link out to you to have a quick look at it, and you can go on the website and have a quick look as well. But our students get involved in lots of different things, don't they? So we'll start fielding some of your questions shortly. But could you maybe tell everybody about some of the other animals? Obviously we've got the really impressive orcas and some of the larger sharks, but what about some of the things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis as a marine biologist here? Because you get a lot of the locals involved, don't you? You get students involved. Yeah. So what do you do as a day-to-day marine biologist here in South Africa?
So so basically, like Lee said, we've got a few different things going on at our marine hub here, and one of those is a marine conservation research station, and that's where we are training early career scientists who are finished university or at university, and they're sort of the next level on, and they're learning field skills and scuba diving skills and helping us collect data for various research projects. And then we also have our sort of outreach side where we want to get the community involved. So like Lee says, this all stems from sort of my interest and passion in marine science and conservation and sharks, and so the video that you just hopefully saw and heard, hopefully you all got that, but that just gives you a little demonstration of how we get kids from who maybe not seen the sea before or haven't been exposed to snorkeling or things like that, and just get them in the water, not only just to get in the water and snorkel, but to actually directly contribute towards research and science. So just to give you a little example of what we are doing here, you can see the slide behind us now. So what we do is we are doing, these are endemic shy sharks, okay? So they don't look like sharks as you might think, as you might know it, but these are actually an endemic small little cat shy shark, and we're taking lots of photos, and we're getting our kids and our guests out in the water taking photos of these guys, and each one has these individual markings and spots, and by putting them through our AI machine learning technology database, we can cross-reference them with each other, and we can come up with a population estimate. And so this is one of the projects which school kids and the general public can get involved with by coming snorkeling with us, and it gives you that more kind of, we call it blurring the lines between marine science and recreational fun. And instead of just going for a snorkel trip, it's actually giving back, directly contributing to marine conservation.
So try and make an impact, isn't it? And another thing that you quite often encourage is if you see rubbish in the ocean, to take it with you. There is one exception to that, isn't there? Is if you find, let's say, a glass jar or a bottle that's been discarded, and quite often marine animals will make it their home, won't they? It's almost like the sea has claimed that, so we leave that where it is. But if there's fresh rubbish in there, we always try and take it out, don't we?
Yeah, so you've seen in that video there was a number of different activities that everyone gets involved in. And one of those is a harbour clean. And we get everyone in the harbour, we've got floating bins, and we just go in there and pick out things like lollipop sticks, cigarette butts, crisp packets, anything that's blown in from the shore, because there's a couple of restaurants and cafes right on the shoreline there. Sometimes it gets a little bit littered. So it's a nice activity to get in the water and have fun and see lots of stuff. There's quite a lot of different animals just in the harbour there, but also to clean it and give back.
How did you get to work in South Africa? We've kind of discussed that, haven't we? What are the working hours? What does a typical marine biologist do?
Well, so as a marine biologist, there's nothing typical. This is not a 9 to 5 job. It's not a Monday to Friday job. Like I said, there are desk elements and research. Part of research is sitting at your desk and writing permits, writing for grants, writing project proposals and that kind of thing. But basically, you've got to be ready when there's something happening, to be in the field, to be there to document it, record it. So we start early in the morning, and sometimes when I used to track white sharks, we used to do tracking all the way through the night, acoustic tracking with the sharks through the night. So very variable hours.
Brilliant. Okay, so it's definitely not a 9 to 5, is it?
No.
Okay. So there's a question here, what type of jobs are there available if you're scuba certified? Now, that's one of those things that I think you, as a marine biologist, you're very likely to be scuba certified, aren't you? But I guess is that always the case? Do you have to be scuba certified, or do some marine biologists maybe just work from a boat? And
yeah, so exactly like I said before, like marine biologist doesn't mean you're in the water all the time, and you might never be in the water. You might be lab-based, office-based, fundraising based. There's all sorts of different jobs that you can get into. But if you are scuba dive and you want to be sort of using your scuba diving in your marine biology, then that's what we call a field biologist. So you're going to be out in the field using your scuba skills to do scientific diving and collect data. So there's data collection side of things. There's also, obviously you can be a professional diver recreationally, so a dive master or a dive instructor, and you can use those skills to be an ambassador and a conservationist, where you can educate people and be an ambassador.
One of the questions here is, are there any jobs in trying to prevent keeping orcas, dolphins, etc. in captivity? So as a marine biologist, might you get involved in that kind of stuff? Now, I know that earlier on that you said that you studied law at A-level, and perhaps you weren't too sure whether that was relevant, but I guess marine biologists are quite influential, aren't they, in trying to shape people's decision making, policy making, which obviously there's a strong focus on maybe trying to prevent captive orcas and dolphins, etc. So is there an element of marine biology where you would be involved in that?
So I think it's important to distinguish the difference. So marine biology is you're the scientist on the ground collecting data, collecting evidence. Okay. Once you collect that evidence, once you've got that evidence, you then pass that the line to government, and then it gets passed to policymakers and legislation makers. So that's like your environmental lawyers and your sort of your legal side of things. So although it's the same field, it's two very different professions. So you wouldn't be a marine biologist and then be in court legally representing, but you might be giving evidence and giving opportunities. And then the other thing is, in terms of captivity, a lot of our work is to educate and spread awareness. And so communicating our science, and science communication is massive. So a lot of people are studying those species in captivity, and then we can sort of give that evidence to the public and to the legal levels. And I think SeaWorld has declared that they're no longer allowed to extract animals from the wild anymore. So that whole thing has happened, and if you've not seen the documentary Blackfish, then I recommend going to watch that and educate yourself on that. But essentially, SeaWorld has been declared that they will no longer take wild stocks from wild individuals.
There's a question here about do you do apprenticeships? I'm not too sure whether that's come through as can you become a marine biologist via an apprenticeship route, or do you personally do apprenticeships, internships with what the companies down here?
So, yeah, being a biologist, marine biologist, whatever you might be, is the same as any profession where you need to be exposed to the field, to the profession. You need to have experience and hands-on experience before you're going to sort of pick up a job. And so it's very important to balance the educational academic side, which is very important to study, go to university to learn, but also get that hands-on experience, become a scuba diver certified, and then gain as much experience as you can, going working at or volunteering at local zoos, doing programs, summer camps, and that's exactly why I set up Cape Ed, because I wanted to give people opportunity to be exposed at a younger age. So my other company is looking at university students and postgrad students who've decided what they're doing, they know what they're doing. Cape Ed is more for those younger guys and girls between sort of 14, 17, might not be sure if they want to be a marine biologist or a conservationist, but they want to have a go and experience being in nature, see some incredible things, get some really nice experiences. And so doing things like that, summer camps, is a really nice way to get a taste of what it involves.
And we've had students from a couple of schools have brought down from year 9. We've had like 5 or 6 year 9s as part of that group, and then right up to year 13s, don't we? And even with that kind of broad age range, it's such an immersive experience down here, isn't it? Is that everybody gets something out of it. So even from as low as, like you say, 14 years old, being able to experience it is fantastic, isn't it? Okay, let's see if there's any more questions. Let me just apologise, because we're in the dive centre at the moment down in South Africa, and we've just had a dive come back in out the water, so apologies if you're hearing a couple of people open the door, etc. There's a lot of excitement going on outside. We'll have to find out what we've seen shortly, won't we? Okay, so Beth is asking this. So how have the discoveries you have made from your research impacted the oceans and development in marine biology?
That's a fantastic question. So what we do here is we collect a lot of data on various projects, like I said, kelp forest, individual shark species, biodiversity, measuring ecology. But what we do is we think it's really important to make the data open source so everybody has accessibility to it, and so it can be contributed to a bigger picture instead of just in this one research station in the circles of academia. So what we try and do is 2 things. We really push scientific communication. So the research we do, we try and teach it to the school groups we get, the university groups that we get, the individuals that come through the door as public contributors. We also upload all our data to government level databases where the government will then, it will be added to a database of a much bigger database, and we'll contribute to those databases, and the government will use that data to implement things like MPA, Marine Protected Area Management, permitting fish stocks and fish quotas and things like that. So sometimes you have really impactful science that can be directly impactful, but a lot of the time your data gets contributed to a bigger picture with people collecting all around the country or the world, and it creates a little jigsaw puzzle to the bigger puzzle.
And that's what schools get involved in when they come down here on the trips, don't they? So the students become citizen scientists, don't they? They like with the fin spotter you were showing earlier on, if students have got their cameras in the water, they can take a photo of the shark, upload it to the system, and then it tells you whether that shark is new to science or whether it's been spotted before. And then obviously you can track where they're moving up and down the coast and things, can't you? So yes. Students get involved in that, don't they?
For those of you who don't know, if you haven't heard the term citizen science before, basically to be a scientist, we just spoke about it, you've got to go to university, you've got to do a lot of studying and that kind of thing. Citizen science is basically a way that we've simplified the science, so everybody and anybody can get involved and contribute towards science. And so we've made like snorkeling activities, paddling activities, kayaking activities where everyone can collect data and put it into a massive database.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so question here from Rose. What would be your top tips for getting into fieldwork or volunteering programs? Now, I know that we've had a couple of schools recently contact us from a geography perspective. So that's actually something that we're going to start to look at soon, isn't it, in terms of being able to do A-level geography fieldwork, because obviously the environment that we've got here in False Bay to look at coasts and things like that. But yeah, what would your top tips be for getting involved into fieldwork or volunteering?
So there's lots of different options. You can go all around the world these days, and there's volunteer programs set up for coral reefs, for kelp forests, for jungle, for savanna. So see what you're interested in and go and experience it and see if you can get involved. And that's again what Cape Ed is all about, getting people opportunities to come to school or come as individuals to enjoy getting a taster of marine biology. But even locally, go and volunteer, see if you can volunteer at the local, if there's a zoo or something like that, or aquarium. Just get involved as much as you can, and then try and get as much exposure to different things as possible, because then you will be able to define what your interests are and then focus that on your studies.
Excellent. In fact, we've had, from one of our 2019 trips, one of the lads who came away was Harley. He's now gone to university and he studied marine biology, and he's just qualified to do that as well, which obviously it's fantastic for us then to be able to see that that's going on from some of the trips and the experiences that we've put together for people. Okay, so a question here from Lois, which says, are the Cape Ed trips just for schools? So with Cape Ed, what we do, that's the branch is where we look directly at secondary schools, yes. Because, in fact, when we were looking at setting it up, we realised that it just doesn't exist. There aren't companies out there which take UK students to South Africa and put people in the water and give them those experiences, because putting your face in a snorkel mask and then in the water here is like nothing else on earth. And as soon as people see that, they instantly fall in love with the place, don't they? So our Cape Ed trips are very much geared towards bringing out school groups. And we have about 10 to 12 students is what we need really for a trip for one of the schools to come down with us. I guess that question might be coming from if Lois is a little bit older. So obviously with something like Cape Ed, for the schools, you might have missed that if your school hadn't got involved at this point, but then you could also look at the likes of Cape Rad, couldn't you?
Yeah, so we've got this whole development program where we're taking, school students from, like I say, age 14 through to 17, which is Cape Ed. For those who are maybe turning 18 and going to university, and you've got a real interest in that side of things, and perhaps you're a scuba diver, qualified scuba diver, or interested in free diving, then we've also got another company called CapeRad.com. You can check the website out, and that is for that next level. So for a field course, you come for 4 weeks, and we give you a real in-depth. Basically, it's marine biology school, and they come and learn field sampling skills, scientific diving skills, analytical skills, and have a great time in South Africa as well. Yeah, and it goes really nicely with going to university, because we cover a lot of topics and subjects that you'll cover at university as well. So you'll learn it at university, and then you'll get an opportunity to apply those skills in the field with Cape Rad.
Am I right in thinking that obviously you're talking about the Cape Rad field course, which is like up to a month? Do you do a volunteer program as well, where people can just come down and be a bit more immersed? Yeah,
so we also, for those over 18 plus, if you're not as science focused and you're not like going to university to study science, perhaps you're into conservation, you're a good photographer, or into photography, or you're writing articles or marketing, or whatever background you have, and you want to specialise it in marine science, then we have long-term volunteer programs, and you can come and get involved in the citizen science side of things.
Brilliant. Well, what's your week look like this week? What's the interesting things that you've done in marine biology this week, would you say? So,
looking back over this week, which has been quite an interesting week, so I've obviously been doing some diving. On Monday, we were out on the boat doing some research diving, and I was skipping the boat as well. And then Tuesday and Wednesday I was at a marine conservation conference, speaking with other scientists and companies and executives who are interested in the space of conservation. We've done night dives and some night diving, and today we've just got a huge group of citizen scientists, which is the noise in the background, sorry about that, but we've just had a big group of citizen scientists out in the kelp forests collecting some shark data and joining us for that. So yeah, like I say, super variable, super fun, but there is that desk element.
Yeah, and well, you were also at a conference as well this week, weren't you? Which was a bit more of an international conference, but you were representing marine biology and conservation, what needs to be done. Was that almost like a a funding level, a government level, or?
So that was a lot of government officials, a lot of big CEOs of things like the Earthshot Prize. So yeah, really influential people, and that's when you can really use those platforms to network. And you know, as a young person, if there's conferences going on in your area, often if you email them and you explain you're a young person interested in the field, they'll give you a free ticket. And you can go and network and meet people and be exposed to different elements of the work that people are doing and the different levels. So yeah, government levels, NGO levels, research institution levels, yeah. So it's a nice way to see the big picture.
That's saying, do we know what our next research topic will be? Yeah, Mike and I actually sat down this week and we had a quick look at some of the things that we might want to do.
I think it was more specifics about killer whales.
So we said, yeah, obviously we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we did also say we're going to talk about some more of the wildlife around the area, haven't we? So obviously we've not even mentioned the penguin colony and the penguin population that's right around the corner here.
And the baboons that run around the streets.
The baboons that have become very habituated to humans. So right outside where we are right now, the amount of animals that we've got that students can come down and study and swim with and things like that, it's fantastic. So Ben, thank you very much for joining us and we'll see you next time.
Cheers everybody.